The sledgehammer crashed through the window of Kestrel's general store at 3 in the morning, followed by desperate hands reaching for anything edible on the shelves. When the security lights blazed on, they illuminated not a hardened criminal, but a woman in torn jeans clutching a loaf of bread to her chest like a lifeline. 5 children huddled behind her in the doorway. "Please," she whispered as footsteps thundered toward them across the gravel parking lot. "They haven't eaten in 2 days." Maverick Holloway lowered the rifle he'd grabbed from his truck, his weathered face softening as he took in the scene. The woman couldn't be more than 30, her auburn hair tangled and eyes hollow with exhaustion. The children ranged from maybe 4 to 14, all rail thin and watching him with the wariness of wild animals. "Name's Indira," she said, chin lifting with fragile pride despite the circumstances. "These are my babies, Zephyr, Cosmos, Luna, River, and Little Sage." She gestured to each child in turn. "I know what this looks like, but I swear I'm good for it. Once I find work, store's closed anyway," Maverick interrupted, surprising himself. His own ranch was barely hanging on by a thread, cattle dying from drought and debt collectors circling like vultures. The last thing he needed was to take on more problems. Yet something in those green eyes stopped him cold. "Come on, let's get them fed." Indira's composure cracked. "I can't accept charity. I won't be anyone's burden." "Not charity. I need help with the ranch, and you need work. Seems like Providence." Maverick holstered his weapon and gestured toward his battered pickup. "Unless you'd rather explain this to Sheriff Martinez when he gets here." As if summoned by his words, sirens wailed in the distance. Indira grabbed Little Sage's hand, her decision made in an instant. The family piled into the truck bed while she climbed into the passenger seat, her jaw set with determination. "I don't know anything about ranching," she admitted as they drove through the darkness toward his property. "You know about surviving. That's more valuable than you think." Maverick's calloused hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. "My wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. Been trying to keep the Broken Arrow running solo ever since, but..." He trailed off, unwilling to voice how close he was to losing everything. The headlights swept across acres of parched land as they pulled up to a modest ranch house, paint peeling but solid bones underneath. Indira studied the man beside her. Broad shoulders bearing invisible weight, silver threading through dark hair, eyes that had seen too much loss. "Why are you helping us?" she asked softly. Maverick killed the engine and looked back at the children already asleep in the truck bed, trusting him completely despite being strangers an hour ago. "Maybe because I recognize the look of someone fighting for what matters most." As they carried the sleeping children inside, neither realized this moment of desperate collision would transform 2 broken lives into something stronger than either could build alone. The ranch that had been dying would soon pulse with new life, and 2 guarded hearts would discover that sometimes salvation came disguised as catastrophe. Dawn broke over the Broken Arrow Ranch with the sound of children's laughter echoing across the barren fields for the first time in years. Indira stood at the kitchen window, watching Maverick show 14-year-old Zephyr how to repair fence posts while the younger ones scattered chicken feed with more enthusiasm than accuracy. "Mama, this place is like a castle," Cosmos declared, bursting through the screen door with 6-year-old Luna close behind. Sage toddled after them, clutching a wooden horse Maverick had carved during his sleepless night. "It's falling apart," Indira murmured, though her tone held no judgment. She'd spent the morning cataloging what needed repair: loose floorboards, drafty windows, a roof that leaked in 3 places. Yet something about the old house felt like sanctuary. Maverick appeared in the doorway, hat in hand and dirt streaking his forearms. "Coffee's ready. We should talk about arrangements." They sat across from each other at the worn kitchen table, 5 steaming mugs between them and the weight of uncertainty hanging in the air. Outside, River was teaching Sage to pet the old barn cat with gentle hands. I meant what I said about work, Maverick began. The ranch needs everything: repairs, bookkeeping, someone to handle the market runs. I can teach you the rest. And in return, room and board for all of you. Fair wages once we start turning profit again. He paused, studying her face. Indira, I won't pretend this will be easy. The drought's been brutal, and I owe more than the land's worth right now. But if you're willing to bet on this place, we've got nowhere else to go. The admission cost her, but honesty felt necessary between them. I left Phoenix with nothing but what fit in my car. My ex-husband, he wasn't a good man. When I finally worked up the courage to leave, I thought I'd figure it out as we went. She laughed bitterly. Turns out running away is easier than running toward something. Maverick's jaw tightened. He hurt you? Not me. Never me. But watching him look at Zephyr like he was calculating whether disciplining someone else's son was worth the effort, double quotes, Indira shook her head. I couldn't let my children grow up walking on eggshells. Something shifted in Maverick's expression, a recognition of protective fury that matched her own. Well, they're safe here. All of you are. You don't know us. We could be running from anything. Could be. But I know desperate doesn't equal dangerous. He reached across the table, his work-roughened hand covering hers briefly. Besides, anyone willing to break into a store just to feed their kids isn't the kind of person who'd hurt mine. The casual way he said mine made Indira's breath catch. When had anyone claimed her children as worth protecting? There's something else, Maverick continued. Banks threatening foreclosure in 6 months. If we can't turn this place around, by then we'll turn it around. The certainty in her voice surprised them both. Zephyr's got good hands and a strong back. Cosmos could charm tourists into buying anything. Luna's got your horses eating from her palm already. River notices everything. He'd make a good manager someday. And Sage, double quote, she smiled. Sage makes everything feel possible. Maverick stared at her for a long moment, something like hope flickering in his weathered features. You really think we can save this place? I think 6 people fighting together have better odds than 1 person fighting alone. Indira squeezed his hand. What? Do you say, partner? Outside, Zephyr's voice carried across the yard as he called the younger ones for breakfast. For the first time in months, the word home didn't feel like a luxury they couldn't afford. 3 weeks into their partnership, disaster struck in the form of Beauregard Fitzwilliam, banker-turned-vulture, arriving in a black sedan that looked obscenely expensive against the backdrop of struggling ranch land. Maverick met him on the porch while Indira shepherded the children inside, though she kept watch through the kitchen curtains. Mr. Holloway, I trust you've given my proposal serious consideration. Fitzwilliam's voice carried the smooth certainty of a man who'd never been denied anything. Meridian Development is prepared to offer 30% above market value for your property. Cash deal, quick closing. And I told you the ranch isn't for sale. Maverick's stance widened, arms crossed. I've got until December to catch up. The payments. Come now, be realistic. Look around you. Fitzwilliam gestured at the patched fences and sun-bleached barn. This land is worth more as a shopping center than it'll ever be as a ranch. Think of your future. I am thinking of my future. Through the window, Indira watched Maverick's jaw set with stubborn determination that both frustrated and impressed her. In 3 weeks, she'd learned to read his moods, the way his shoulders tensed when bills arrived, how his eyes softened when little Sage presented him with wildflower bouquets, the careful distance he maintained even as he taught her children to ride and rope and dream bigger than survival. Mr. Holloway, Fitzwilliam's tone sharpened, I'm trying to help you here. Walk away with something rather than lose everything to foreclosure. Mama, Luna whispered, tugging at Indira's sleeve. Why is that man making Maverick look sad? Before Indira could answer, River spoke up from the table where he was doing homework. Because he wants to steal our home. This isn't our home, Zephyr corrected automatically, though his voice lacked conviction. We're just staying here temporarily. The words hit Indira like a physical blow. In 3 weeks, they'd fallen into rhythms that felt permanent: morning chores and evening stories, Maverick teaching Cosmos to whittle while she balanced books by lamplight, all of them working together to nurse sick cattle through the drought. But Zephyr was right. They were guests here, temporary help trading labor for shelter. She stepped onto the porch just as Fitzwilliam was climbing back into his sedan. Mr. Holloway will have his answer by month's end, he called through the window. Don't let pride cost you everything. Dust clouds swirled in the sit-in's wake as it disappeared down the gravel drive. Maverick stood motionless, staring after it. How much do you owe? Indira asked quietly. 80,000. Might as well be 8 million. What would we need to make that kind of money? A miracle. Maverick turned toward her, his expression hollow. Indira, I should have been honest from the start. This place is sinking, and I'm dragging you down with it. Are you asking us to leave? The question hung between them like a challenge. Behind them, the screen door creaked as 5 children crowded onto the porch, all of them watching with the intensity of small creatures sensing danger. No, Maverick said finally. God help me. I'm selfish enough to want you to stay, even if it means watching it all fall apart. Then we fight. Indira moved to stand beside him, her shoulder brushing his. We've got 8 months. What if we turn this place into something different? Agritourism, maybe. City folks paying to experience ranch life. You think people would pay to shovel manure and chase cattle? I think people would pay for what we've got here. She gestured at the children now scattered across the yard, Sage riding the old dog like a horse, while Cosmos demonstrated rope tricks to an audience of chickens. Family, peace, the chance to slow down. Maverick studied her profile something, shifting in his chest. You really see potential in this dust bowl? I see home, Indira said simply. Now let's figure out how to keep it. The transformation began at sunrise on a Tuesday, with Indira armed with a laptop she'd bought secondhand and a determination that both thrilled and terrified Maverick. She'd spent the previous week researching successful agritourism operations, taking notes in the margins of library books while the children did homework around the kitchen table. Guest cabins, she announced, spreading hand-drawn plans across the breakfast table. 4 of them, built from reclaimed barnwood, authentic but comfortable. Luna, stop feeding bacon to the cat. Where would we get the materials? Maverick studied the sketches, impressed despite his skepticism. The woman who'd broken into a store for bread was designing business plans with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted her ability to build something from nothing. Cosmos found 3 abandoned barns within 20 miles. Owners are happy to let us tear them down for free if we clean up the lots afterward. Indira pointed to a section of pasture near the creek. Zephyr thinks we could have the first cabin framed within a month. You've discussed this with the kids? They're stakeholders, too. She looked up from the plans. Maverick, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. He set down his coffee mug, sensing the shift in her tone. Are we partners in this, or am I hired help with benefits? The question cut through him. Over the past month, he'd watched her throw herself into ranch life with a dedication that humbled him. She balanced books with precision, negotiated feed prices with suppliers who'd been trying to cheat him for years, and somehow managed to stretch their grocery budget to feed 7 people on what had barely sustained 2. But more than that, she'd brought life back to a place that had felt like a tomb since his wife's death. What kind of partner are you asking about? He asked carefully. Color rose in her cheeks, but she held his gaze. The kind who gets a say in major decisions. Who shares the risks and the rewards. Who's building something together, not just helping you save what you already have. And if I say yes? If we're full partners in whatever this becomes? Then we trademark the name, incorporate as an LLC, and split everything 50-50. She slid a folder across the table. I already drew up the papers. Broken Arrow Ranch and Resort, co-owned by Maverick Holloway and Indira Chun. Chun. He'd never asked her last name, and she'd never offered it. Now it sat between them on legal documents that would bind their futures together. What about the children? What happens to them if this partnership goes bad? It won't go bad. The certainty in her voice made him want to believe in impossible things. But if it does, they're still my priority. They always will be. Maverick picked up the pen she'd placed beside the papers, then set it down again. Indira, there's something I need to tell you first. Her face went carefully neutral. Okay, when my wife got sick, I was a coward. I couldn't handle watching her fade away, so I threw myself into ranch work. Spent more time with dying cattle than with the woman I'd promised to love in sickness and health. His voice cracked slightly. She died thinking I'd already moved on. Indira reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. You're not that man anymore. How do you know? Because that man wouldn't have taken in 5 strangers at 3 in the morning. He wouldn't spend evenings teaching Cosmos to carve or reading bedtime stories to Sage. He wouldn't notice that River likes his eggs scrambled or that Luna needs extra attention after nightmares. She squeezed his fingers. That man was running. From love, you're running toward it. The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. Somewhere between teaching her children to ride and watching her transform his dying ranch into something vibrant, he'd fallen completely, helplessly in love with. The fierce woman who'd crashed into his life wielding desperation and determination in equal measure. Sign the papers, Maverick, she said softly. Let's build something beautiful together. He picked up the pen and signed his name with steady hands, sealing their fate on every level that mattered. By October, the first guest cabin stood complete. Beside Willow Creek, its reclaimed wood walls golden in the afternoon sunlight. Maverick ran his hand along the smooth porch railing, still marveling at what they'd accomplished in 5 months of docile labor. The Reynolds family from Dallas. Confirmed for opening weekend, Indira called from the cabin doorway, phone pressed to her ear. That's all 4 cabins booked through Christmas. She ended the call and grinned at him. We did it, partner. We haven't turned a profit yet, he cautioned, though he couldn't keep the pride from his voice. The transformation had been remarkable. Guest cabins with modern amenities hidden behind rustic facades, a renovated barn converted to a dining hall, and acres of experiences designed to give city families a taste of authentic ranch life. Pessimist, Indira bumped his shoulder playfully. Look what we've built. He looked and saw more than cabins and corrals. River had become his right-hand man for cattle operations, displaying an intuitive understanding of animal behavior that impressed veterinarians twice his age. Cosmos charmed every visitor with his roping demonstrations and hand-carved souvenirs. Luna had turned horse care into an art form, while Zephyr managed construction projects with the competence of someone twice his age. And Sage, 7-year-old Sage, had become the ranch's unofficial ambassador, greeting guests with hugs and wildflower bouquets that earned 5-star reviews. Your kids are incredible, he said. Our kids, she corrected automatically then. Froze as the words registered between them. The casual correction hung in the cooling air. Over the months, the lines between his family and hers had blurred into something seamless. He attended school conferences and soccer games. She made medical appointments and enforced bedtimes. The children called him by his first name but looked, to him for guidance with the unconscious trust of those who knew they were truly seen and valued. "Indira, I know it's complicated," she said quickly. "They're not yours biologically, and I don't expect. I love them." The words escaped before he could second-guess them. "I love all of you." She stared at him, eyes wide with something between hope and terror. "What does that mean?" "It means I want this to be permanent. Not just the business partnership, but ... He gestured helplessly, struggling to find words for feelings too big for language. "It means when I think about the future, I can't imagine it without you. Any of you. Maverick." His name was barely a whisper. "I know it's complicated," he echoed. Her words. "I know you've got reasons not to trust men who make promises. But I'm asking you to consider that maybe what we've built here is worth risking your heart on." Before she could respond, excited shouts erupted from the main house. They turned too. See all 5 children racing toward them, Sage clutching an official-looking envelope. "It's from the bank," Cosmos announced, breathless with excitement and anxiety. Maverick's stomach dropped. The final payment wasn't due for another month, but banks didn't send good news by certified mail. With trembling fingers, he opened the envelope and scanned the contents. "What is it?" Indira asked, her face gone pale. "Fitzwilliam's making another offer. Meridian Development wants to buy us out before we open." He looked up from the letter. "They're offering double what they quoted 6 months ago." "That's wonderful," Luna clapped her hands. "You can pay off everything and have lots left over. But what about the ranch?" River asked quietly. "What about the cabins we built?" The question silenced everyone. They'd poured themselves into this place, transformed it from a dying dream into a thriving reality. Walking away now would mean starting over somewhere else, leaving behind not just a business but the home they'd created together. "It's a good offer," Maverick said carefully, studying Indira's face. "Life-changing money. Enough to buy land anywhere, start fresh without the pressure. Is that what you want?" she asked. He looked at the children surrounding them, faces. He'd learned to read like beloved books, dreams he'd helped nurture, futures he'd invested in with more than money. Then he looked at the woman who'd taken his dying ranch and filled it with laughter and purpose and love. "I want whatever keeps us together," he said simply. "All of us. Everything else is negotiable." Indira smiled then, the kind of radiant expression that made his chest tight with possibilities. "Then let's send Mr. Fitzwilliam our regrets. We've got guests coming next week." December arrived with the ranch's first snowfall and a crisis that threatened everything they'd built. Maverick stood in the veterinarian's clinic, staring at x-rays that showed fractures in 3 of River's ribs and a punctured lung from his encounter with an ornery bull. "He'll be fine," Dr. Cavendish assured him. "Kids are resilient. But he needs to stay put for at least 6 weeks. No heavy lifting, no ranch work." "He's going to hate that," Maverick said, thinking of the 12-year-old, who'd become his shadow and most trusted helper. "Ranch work is his life. Better a bored kid than a dead one." The vet clapped him on the shoulder. "Take him home, keep him quiet, and count your blessings it wasn't worse." But worse was waiting at home in the form of 3 reservation cancellations. Due to River's accident making local news, a broken water heater in cabin 3, and Indira hunched over the laptop with the expression of someone calculating impossible math. "How bad?" Maverick asked, settling beside her at the kitchen table while the children crowded around River's makeshift bed in the living room, signing his cast with elaborate artwork. "Bad. Without River's help, we're understaffed for the Christmas bookings. Without those bookings, we can't make the final payment to the bank." She rubbed her temples. "I've run the numbers every way possible. We need a miracle, or we could take Fitzwilliam's offer. It's still on the table." The suggestion felt like betrayal even as he voiced it, but desperation made cowards of better men than him. Is that what you want? Indira asked the same question that had defined their relationship from the beginning. I want you and the kids to be secure. If that means selling ... He trailed off as Sage appeared at his elbow, clutching the carved horse he'd made her months ago. Uncle Maverick, are we gonna have to move again? The 7-year-old's eyes held the wariness of a child who'd learned not to count on stability. We're figuring things out, sweetheart, because I don't want to leave. This is where we belong. She climbed onto his lap with the unconscious trust that still amazed him. River says we're a team, and teams don't quit when things get hard. From the living room, River's voice carried clearly. I can still do computer stuff and planning. I'm not useless just because I can't lift hay bales. Nobody thinks you're useless, Cosmos called back, but we need strong backs for guest week. What? If we didn't? Luna's thoughtful voice silenced the room. What if we made it about other stuff instead? Zephyr appeared in the doorway. What do you mean? Remember Mrs. Patterson from Austin? How she said she wished she could stay longer and learn to cook ranch food? And Mr. Kim wanted to know about sustainable farming? Luna's excitement was building. What if we made it a teaching thing instead of a working thing? Indira looked up from her laptop, something sparking in her expression. Immersive education. Instead of manual labor. Cooking classes with ranch ingredients, Maverick said, following the thread. Sustainable agriculture workshops. Natural horsemanship demonstrations instead of cattle drives. I could teach people to carve, Cosmos offered. And I could show them how to care for horses properly, Luna added. Financial planning for small farms, Indira said, fingers already flying over the keyboard. Marketing agricultural products. Building community through food. River struggled to sit up straighter, his eyes bright with possibility. We could create packages, like Ranching 101 or From Pasture to Plate or Building Your Dream Ranch. People would pay for that? Sage asked. They'd pay more for that, Maverick realized. Exclusive experiences, small groups, personalized attention. We wouldn't need as many guests to make the same revenue. Within an hour, they'd redesign their entire business model around education rather than labor, positioning themselves as experts sharing knowledge instead of hosts providing entertainment. Indira worked the phones, converting existing reservations to premium experience packages while the children brainstormed workshops and activities. By evening, they'd not only salvage Christmas bookings but increase their projected revenue by 30%. We did it again, Indira said, collapsing onto the couch beside Maverick as the children finally settled into bed. Turned disaster into opportunity. River did it, Maverick corrected. Kids got better business instincts than most adults. They all do. They've had to. She leaned against his shoulder, exhaustion and relief making her voice soft. Maverick, what we've built here. It's not just a business, is it? No, he agreed. It's a family, a real family. Not temporary, not conditional. He turned to face her fully, seeing the vulnerabilities she usually kept hidden beneath competence. And determination, the most real thing I've ever had. When she kissed him, it tasted like promises and new beginnings, like the kind of love that grew from partnership and bloomed into something unbreakable. Spring returned to the broken arrow. Ranch with the scent of wildflowers and the sound of hammers as they broke ground on their 6th guest cabin. Maverick paused in his work to watch Indira lead a group of visitors through their Sustainable Ranching 101 workshop, her voice carrying clearly across the pasture as she explained rotational grazing techniques. She's something else, isn't she? He turned to find Zephyr beside him, now 18 and grown into the kind of young man who commanded respect without demanding it. The boy who'd arrived hollow-eyed and defensive had become a natural leader, managing construction crews and guest relations with equal skill. She saved us all, Maverick replied. Nah. Zephyr shook his head. You two saved each other. The rest of us just got lucky enough to be part of it. A year and a half had passed since that desperate night at the general store, and the transformation still amazed Maverick. The Broken Arrow Ranch and Resort was booked solid through the following spring, featured in agricultural magazines and sustainable tourism guides. River had published an article on innovative ranch management at age 13. Cosmos's carved horses sold in gift shops across 3 states. Luna trained horses for therapeutic riding programs. And Sage, 9-year-old Sage, had become the unofficial face of their marketing campaigns, her gap-toothed grin and flower crowns appearing in brochures that drew guests from across the country. You nervous about tonight? Zephyr asked with the knowing grin of someone who'd helped plan what was supposed to be a surprise. Maverick touched the ring box in his pocket, his heart hammering against his ribs, terrified. She's gonna say yes. We all know she's gonna say yes. How can you be so sure? Because she looks at you the way Mama looked at Dad before he got mean, like you're the best thing that ever happened to her. Zephyr's expression grew serious. And because she trusts you with us, that's not something Mama gives lightly. The workshop ended with applause and handshakes, guests heading back to their cabins with soil samples and packets of heirloom seeds. Indira walked toward them, dirt smudging her cheek and satisfaction radiating from her smile. Good group? Maverick asked. The best. 3 of them want to book our advanced workshop series for fall. She stretched, working kinks from her shoulders. How's the cabin coming? Ahead of schedule. Should be ready for Memorial Day bookings. They fell into step together, walking toward the main house where the other children were preparing what they thought was a surprise family dinner. In reality, Maverick had orchestrated the entire evening around a proposal that had been months in the planning. Indira, he began, then stopped as his carefully rehearsed words evaporated. What is it? I was just thinking about that first night. When you broke into Kestrel's store, she laughed. My life of crime was brief but effective. What if I told you that was the best thing that ever happened to me? I'd say you have very strange definitions of good fortune. They'd reached the porch where fairy lights twinkled between support posts, and the table was set for 7 with wildflower centerpieces. Through the windows, he could see the children moving around the kitchen with barely contained excitement. Marry me, he said suddenly, the words tumbling out without finesse or ceremony. Indira froze, her hand on the porch railing. What? Marry me? He pulled out the ring box, dropping to one knee on the weathered boards where they'd shared so many conversations about dreams and possibilities. Marry me because I love you. Marry me because I love those incredible children of yours of ours, and I want to be their father legally as well as in my heart. Marry me because what we've built together is too beautiful to be anything but permanent. Maverick, I know it's complicated. I know you have reasons to be careful with trust. But we've spent 2 years proving that we're stronger together than apart. We've turned dust into home, remember? Tears streamed down her face as she stared at the ring, a simple solitaire that caught the fairy lights like captured starlight. You want to adopt them? She whispered. I want to make us official in every way that matters. I want Christmas. Mornings and graduation days and first dates where I get to be the dad who meets boyfriends at the door with a shotgun. He smiled through his own tears. I want forever, Indira. With all of you. The front door burst open and 5 children spilled onto the porch, pretense abandoned in favor of witnessing the moment that would define their future. Say yes, Mama, Sage urged, bouncing on her toes. Say yes so we can be a real family forever. We're already a real family, Indira said softly, her eyes never leaving Maverick's face. But yes to all of it. Yes to forever. The ring slipped onto her finger like it had always belonged there, and when he stood to kiss her, Their children surrounded them in a group hug that felt like coming home. 6 months later, they stood in the same spot for their wedding ceremony, surrounded by friends and guests and neighbors who'd watched a struggling rancher and a desperate, single mother transform into something extraordinary. The vows they spoke were simple but profound, promises built on shared work and weathered difficulties, and the kind of love that grew stronger under pressure. The Broken Arrow Ranch thrived, eventually expanding to include an agricultural college program and a nonprofit foundation supporting single parents. River became the youngest person ever certified as a sustainable agriculture consultant. Cosmos opened his own artisan workshop. Luna founded a therapeutic horse program that helped troubled children heal through animal connection. Zephyr earned a degree in business management and returned to help run the ranch. And Sage grew up believing that anything was possible if you were willing to work for it alongside people who loved you. Years later, when journalists asked about their success story, Maverick and Indira would always give the same answer. We didn't just save a ranch. We saved each other. Everything else grew from there. And in the guest book that visitors signed before leaving, one entry appeared again and again in different handwriting but identical sentiment. This place proves that sometimes the best homes are built from broken pieces, held together by love and hard work and the faith that tomorrow can be better than today. The dust had indeed become home, and home had become everything.